Helping Seniors Television, all about improving quality of life for seniors. If you're a senior, know a senior, or plan to be a senior, then this show is for you. It's all about helping you develop your own aging plan so you can age actively and with dignity. Helping Seniors Television from the Helping Seniors Network of information, education, and resources. I'm Kerry Fink with Helping Seniors Television. And welcome to Helping Seniors Television. On behalf of Joe Steckler, who's our president and founder of the entire Helping Seniors team, thank you for joining us. You know, these programs are put together to help you organize an aging plan. And we're going to talk a little bit about all that. I want to introduce real quickly first, though, our guest who is with us, Heather Palonis from Paradise Mobile Labs. How are you today?
I'm well. How are you?
Good. You know, our president and founder, he's a 86-year-old retired Navy captain, and his last command, he was a submarine commander early on, but his last command in the Navy was for the Naval Retirement Home in Mississippi, and he was in charge of, I think it was 500-600 people that was their home. And he really came from there with a love for taking care of seniors. And so when he got to Brevard County, he and his wife Terry retired here. And he's a guy who just can't stay retired. So the first thing he did is he helped the Brevard Alzheimer's Foundation get established, get their endowment in place, and then get to work on these things called Joe's Clubs, which they call them to these days, named after Joe, which are daycare facilities for seniors that have memory issues and trying to give caregivers a little bit of a break. And so even though Joe retired from that like 10, 12 years ago, I first met him about 10, 12 years ago. And he came to me and said, I'm starting a nonprofit, another nonprofit, and it's going to be called Helping Seniors of Brevard. He said, because what I've learned along the way is that seniors often have problems that transcend, that go farther than just memory issues. And we need a service that can do that. We need a senior information helpline so that people throughout Brevard County can give a call and get connected to a resource that they need. And he said, the reason folks need that is because they need to create an aging plan. And I want you to think about how people talk to us our whole life. Like when we're in grade school, they're talking to us about, what do you want to be when you grow up? What's your job going to be? What are you thinking about your career? And then, you know, do you need to go to college? You know, they ask all those kind of questions. And then when we get into our working years, they come back and ask a lot of questions like, well, are you planning for your kids to go to college? Are you planning for your retirement? Where are you going to live when you retire? All these questions come at you, and they call that retirement planning or financial planning. And then the question is, we get to retirement years, and we've done what we did about our career plan. We've done what we did about our financial plan. And then Joe asked the question, but do we have an aging plan? In other words, how will we take care of the things that we will run into or might run into as life goes along? And, you know, even though people sometimes say, well, you know, I don't want to think about all those things because maybe not all of that is such pleasant thinking, but I go, we live here in Florida. We understand the need for having a hurricane plan, right? We don't want a hurricane, but we know we're supposed to collect batteries for the flashlight, get plans for drinking water and things like that. And we try to prepare so that we're set to take care of any things that run along the way. And I think that's what Joe's point about an aging plan really is. And so one of the things that Joe has really mandated into the vision for helping seniors is, if you think about it, one of the challenges we have with aging is it's on-the-job training, right? I mean, you don't know for a lot of it until you get there. And so one of the ways that you can, I guess, get a jump on it is by taking the time to learn things that might be helpful and try to plan for some of those possibilities. So one of the topics we want to talk about whenever we do Helping Seniors Television is to give topics to introduce people to new concepts and new ideas that might help them. Now, one of the big concepts in aging is most people, vast majority of people say, I want to age at home in place. I like where I live. I'm familiar with it. I want to make it safe for my retirement years. And particularly, even as people have been through things with COVID or other things, we've really learned the importance of being able to do things from home. And that's why one of the things that I think brings us to our topic for today, when we talk about the work that you do with Paradise Mobile Labs, we grew up in an age where you had to go out for everything. Now you can have Uber Eats or something deliver food to your home. Throughout all of this, we've learned through Zoom calls, we can stay connected with our family. But there are certain things that you otherwise would still have to go out for traditionally. One of those would be a doctor's appointment, right? You'd have to make your appointment, and no matter how inconvenient it was, you'd have to get dressed, you'd have to get in your car, if you have a car, or worse, if you have the complications of trying to figure out somebody to get in the car to take you to the doctor, call a taxi, call a driving service or whatever, or some kind of transportation, worse, to get you to the doctor's appointment just to do that. And then, as you know, as we age, we have to have blood work and things like that done on an ongoing basis. And even if it isn't getting up, getting dressed, organizing transportation to and from the doctor's office, now maybe the medicine you have is requiring you to have weekly or every other week blood checks and things like that. So you're still finding yourself with all those logistical challenges of being able to do that. And then, and I'm going out on a limb here, Heather, correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of times they don't just tell you you need the blood work, but you need to do it after fasting, which means first thing in the morning, right?
Right.
And so they want all this stuff before you've had anything to eat. So now, on top of all those other complications, you're trying to figure that part out. And it really seems like Paradise Mobile Labs, you guys become an answer to a prayer from the standpoint that you take all of that out of the equation, because now you bring the blood work test or whatever test is being asked for right to the patient's home.
Absolutely. We're really about, bringing conveniences of the lab directly to the patient in their home.
And I wanted to ask you about that because usually the process is we go to the doctor, and the doctor, after asking a few questions, says, okay, well, I want to have you a few tests. And they usually just hand you a piece of paper and say, take this down to the hospital or take this over to the blood lab. And then now you're stuck on your own figuring out how to do this, when to do this. But you can really make most of that logistical nightmare go away.
Absolutely. So normally when the patient is at the doctor's office, they can let the doctor know that they would like for us, Paradise Mobile Labs, to come perform the blood draw. There are times where that paper that the doctor gives the patient, that order, we can just take that and use that for the blood draw. And all we need is that order, and then we schedule a time that's convenient with the patient. We go to their home, perform the blood draw. There is a $25 draw fee that's due at the time of services. Then we take the specimens to the hospital, or we now have an account with Quest, and they do the testing and they bill the insurance directly.
Yeah, so what's fascinating to me is about this, the doctor asks you to do this test that you're supposed to do before whatever your first thing in the morning that you would otherwise be doing, probably eating breakfast on a normal day. And they want to get this blood work organized in a way that that they get a clean read so they can help you figure out anything that needs to be adjusted. So logistically, you're having to fight through all those things, but by you being able to come to the patient's home, it really makes it that much simpler. And that's for a person that has no problem getting out of bed, moving around, or anything like that. But I can only imagine that you are a real godsend for somebody that situation is a bit more complex. Maybe they're either bedridden or it becomes really difficult for them to move around. They maybe have to transfer to a wheelchair or all kinds of things to be able to do what they do.
Absolutely. And we have plenty of patients who are bedbound, and it takes a lot of stress off of them, knowing that they can have somebody come to them, take care of them without having to go out and deal with all the hassle of a traditional blood draw.
And that was a whole thing I wanted to ask, because you mentioned Paradise Mobile Lab. And so the immediate first thing is maybe it's somebody who has to have, they're on some kind of a blood thinner medication, and the doctors are always wanting to check that on a frequent basis. So it's not too thin, but it is thin enough that it's doing the job that they need it to do. And so there's all those kind of routine things. And again, that often calls somebody to get out of bed first thing in the morning and go, you know, even weekly or a couple of times a month to have all this scoped out, just so the doctor can say, yep, you're on a right course, keep going straight ahead. And you're able to just put that onto the calendar, show up, get this thing done, and then it's peace of mind for everybody involved. The doctor knows what's going on, the patient knows what's going on, and they didn't have to go through all this to get to that point.
Absolutely. And most of the times, the turnaround time for most of the lab work is within the same day.
Wow.
I'm typically able to have the results, and I fax them straight to the doctor so they have them. So it's a very quick turnaround time. So that's very good for the patient. They can get their results, especially if they're on medications, and like sometimes their medication has to be adjusted. So very quick turnaround times.
And I was thinking about this, you know, if you've ever had the experience of going in for a blood test or blood work any place, you know, first of all, you have to get there, you have to stand in line. Then, even though you were just there last week, here, fill out this form, and they have to have all this information. But I guess all of that gets simplified when you're involved too.
Absolutely. We handle all the paperwork. We have all the information from the doctor's office as far as the insurance and everything. So all that is eliminated. We go in, do the blood draw. It could take less than 15 minutes to get everything done, and then we're on our way. Your blood draw's done, and you're ready to go about your day.
You know, I think people these days, they love shopping online because the packages come right to the door. They don't have to, you know, try to figure out how to get out and go shopping. Even as we've learned, you know, now a lot of people are buying groceries online and having them taken right to the door. And particularly as we age, we want to stay out of those situations that could be unsafe. And so by having you come directly to the door, there's that whole security factor. We don't have to worry about trying to travel out. We don't have to worry about slips and falls being out or things like that. Really seems like there's so many pluses to this. And then I guess the thing that you taught me as we were talking about this before the camera was rolling, I was just thinking in terms of blood work, but you're able to help with a lot of different tests. Maybe we should back up and just have you explain, here's the kind of services that Paradise Mobile Labs is able to provide.
Yes, so we do blood draws for multiple tests, routine tests, and then we also do stool collections and urine collections. If your doctor orders, like a lot of times we see a lot of UTIs.
Right.
And that can be it can have very impactful things on the patients. And so it's very important to get the UTI under control. So we can come to the patient. We have all the supplies to get the urine collection. And then typically we have the results back quickly for those. And the urinalysis will show if there's a type of infection. And then if it shows that there is, then they watch it for a couple days and do a culture on it. So that while it's being cultured, that allows the doctor time to go ahead and start the patient on medications to clear up that UTI. So, yep, blood draws, urine collections, stool collections, we can handle all of that.
You know, and I was thinking about that, you know, getting up in the morning and not skipping, you know, and skipping your breakfast so you can go have a blood draw is complicated enough. But if any of you have ever dealt with these things where they are trying to check and see what's going on, and they say they want, you know, they want a urine sample, and you've got to get the person up and to the lab so that they can do the get the collection in the little cup. There's always all these issues, right?
Absolutely.
So then they get there and they have stage fright. You know, it's not time. I can't, no matter how much pressure you're putting on me, I can't. And so then you have to go back home and try it the next day because, again, it is what it is. And I was thinking about not only that, but particularly as we get older, trying to manage collecting those samples, because what do? They send you home with a little bottle, and somehow you're supposed to figure out how to get that into that bottle, and yet you once again are able to just make that process a whole simpler and a lot more painless, I guess.
Right. We have it's just a little insert that you put into your toilet, and you just use the bathroom like you normally would, and it collects everything. So we can then pour that into the little cup, so that takes that whole process out. And another thing about people going to the labs, like if they're having fasting blood work and they're diabetic, that could be a big problem. So especially with diabetes and such, it's very important to monitor when they're fasting, because it could have severe consequences for those patients.
Well, and then there's another aspect too, right? Because if you are going to a lab and you're going to do these things, there's all those variables that you're introducing. You know, you're trying to say, okay, well, I didn't have my coffee this morning or whatever that they didn't want you to do, and you're doing the best you can. But like you just pointed out, one thing may be connected, maybe connected to the other. So again, if you have Paradise Mobile Labs coming into your home, they can knock out everything that's needed. Technically, that way you can schedule it at a time that works, so it's convenient for everybody all the way around, and you're going to get that accurate sample, right?
Absolutely. And another thing we see sometimes is people are scared to go to the lab. They have a fear of blood draws, and so I've seen a lot of times when they're in their home, they're more comfortable. They don't have the anxiety that leads up to going to the lab, and then waiting and all this. So it's a lot more convenient for them health-wise and mentally, if they're having like anxiety.
Well, and not only that, if you're thinking about it's flu season, or worse yet, when people are worried about things like COVID or anything like that, people want to stay, they feel more secure, they feel safe at home, and this way they're getting a safe experience without having to go through all that. And what I guess the key point is, since all this is essentially billed by through your insurance carrier, literally the only thing that you're responsible for is that $25 collection fee, which if you had to call somebody and say, listen, I need a ride to such and such at 6 o'clock this morning, you're going to spend that by the time you've gone both to and from, and you've wasted all your time, right? Because you had to get up early, you had to get dressed, you had to get ready. This way, it all comes to you, and you get your sample that's needed, and then you're enjoying breakfast after that.
Absolutely. And even, after we do the blood draw, I always tell people, if they're fasting, go ahead, start preparing your coffee, because as soon as we take the needle out, you're essentially good to go. And some people, they just can't go without that coffee. So if we're in the home, it's right there and ready for them.
And there's another thought I was just thinking about is, if you're like me, you're not particularly fond of needles.
Right.
And so every time you go into a place to have your blood drawn, you're sort of saying a silent prayer that the person who is doing this knows what they're doing. And of course, in a blood lab kind of situation, it's a different person every time. So you really are just sort of the luck of the draw. But one of the things is, I imagine because you are a personal service company, people get to know you and your team, and they get to know that you're very good at this.
Absolutely. And I feel like building a rapport with the patient and having like consistency, the same person with them, that makes a world of difference, because like you said, you have no idea how this person is as a phlebotomist, and that can cause anxiety, especially if they've had a bad experience.
Yeah.
They never know what's going to happen next. So having the same person, having consistency, that way they get to know you, they feel comfortable with you. That's very important.
And so for every reason that we've just been talking about, it seems like you got to give you guys a call. But I was asking you also before this, since this is kind of new to the area, I'm not really familiar that I've heard anybody else doing what you do. I think it's absolutely fantastic. We live in a county that 1 out of 4 people is over the age of 65. So I think Joe Steckler had quoted something like, we're the 24th oldest county in the entire United States out of 3,000 plus counties, by percentage. And then if you use AARP's definition, which they say you're a senior at age 50, that's 1 out of 2 of us in this county. So we always have this sort of half joke that if you live in Brevard County, you either are a senior, love and care for a senior, or God willing, you're going to be one soon, because it's just the way the age breaks here. But I was thinking as we went through that, with what you're doing, it's so revolutionary. How does a person know, so this really sounds good? How do I do that? Do I tell my doctor I want this? What's the best way for me to get this process started? Because I love the idea of not having to go get dressed early in the morning and try to make it over to the hospital for a blood test, or worse, a urine test or a stool test, kind of thing. I'd much rather do this in the comfort and privacy of my home. How does that work?
The best thing to do is have the doctor fax the order directly to us. The doctor can call us. Our phone number is 321-522-7466. Our fax number is 321-989-0226. And when they fax the lab order over, all we need is the lab order with the patient demographics, which will have their address, their date of birth, and their insurance information. And then from there, we take over, we call the patient, and we work with the patient after that, and then we send the results directly to the doctor.
So let's give those numbers again. So to reach your office,
it's 321-522-7466.
And let's go with that fax number. So you could write this fax number down and write down next to it, Paradise Mobile Labs. And when you go to the doctor, say, listen, do me a favor. Please, this is where I'd like to have my lab work done. It's all the same to you, but this will help me out a great deal. And that fax number?
That fax number is 321-989-0226. And
again, I just want to be clear. So it's the same process. It just gets billed through the insurance. The only difference is you pay the $25 draw fee when you come out to actually do to take the sample, right?
Absolutely.
So there's no extra cost other than just the convenience fee, I guess I would call it,
right,
because you're going to spend that. I don't care if you call a neighbor and say, hey, listen, I need a ride to the doctor. You're going to let me buy you a tank of gas or something,
right,
for your trouble. So this is really a good and efficient way. And especially if you're a caregiver for somebody, think about how you've lightened your own load with this.
Absolutely.
So share a little bit. Do you have maybe I would call it like a success story of a couple of cases, or a case where you felt like this is where I've been able to really make a difference and really help somebody out who otherwise this would have been very difficult for them to get out?
Absolutely. So I recently had a patient here in Brevard, and she was bedbound, and she had to have lab work done. And, with all the COVID and flu going around now, she was also a high risk. And she was scared to go out, even if she was able to go out. So we were able to, she ended up finding us online. She did a Google search and she found us. We was able to go and perform the blood draw. She happened to have a urine collection. We was able to help her with that, even though she was bedbound. We was able to get that taken care of, get the results and everything to her doctor. And she was just so grateful that we were able to come to her, take care of her. And then we actually went out a couple weeks later and saw her again because the doctor ordered another test for her. And it's just nice for her to know that, hey, I can be taken care of and not have to leave my home. And it's just bringing the lab directly to them. As you were telling that story, I was thinking, I bet you get a lot of patients for life, because the first time somebody calls you and they go, wow, that was great. Then they're going to call you every time from now on. Right. I recently did a couple also, and she told me, she said, I'm never going to the lab again. Yeah. I don't think I will ever return. And so it's just nice to know that we're providing a service that people are appreciative of, and we can provide them the convenience.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. And I think you guys are going to continue to grow at a hugely rapid pace, because as word gets out about what Paradise Mobile Labs can mean in terms of convenience, in terms of safety, in terms of security, in terms of comfort, in terms of just friendliness. I mean, it's nice to not deal with, some orderly you've never met, no offense, who wanders in, and it's a different person from 2 weeks ago. I guess you're able to build a relationship and people feel really comfortable with that.
Absolutely. And I'm from Alabama originally, so I'm a Southerner. I believe in building relationships and being friendly. So that's very important for the company also. That's
good. So let's make sure we get the numbers out one more time. So again, tell me if I have this right, or if you need to correct me on it, but it seems like the best path is when you go to the doctor's office and they say, okay, well, we want you to have this test or that test. So listen, I'm working with a company that can do all this for me from home, and that would really help me out. It's called Paradise Mobile Labs, and let me give you their fax number. So if you'll just have your office folks fax that directly over, then we'll be good on that. So what's that fax number?
The fax number is 321-989-0226.
And then let's also, so maybe people say, well, I've really enjoyed hearing about this. Let me give Heather and her team a call. What's the phone number to reach you at?
It's 321-522-7466. And I've had people call me just because they want more information. They want to know, how does this process work? Sure. And we're glad to help anyone out. We'll let you know the process. We'll come and take care of you. If we need to reach out to your doctor, we're able to do that as well. If your doctor needs to call, they have questions for us, we're open to that also.
That's great. Well, in just a moment left, what is your website? Because you have a website, right?
Yes, it's paradisemobilelabs.com.
So that's another good way to find out more. So check it out. Heather Palonis, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Good to have you on Helping Seniors Television. Check out Paradise Mobile Labs.
I'm Joe Steckler. Thank you for joining our program today. I'd like to remind you that our senior information line is available to you at 321-473-7770. There you can get help and direction that could be helpful for your specific situation or circumstances. The work of helping seniors is very important, but we can't do it alone. That is why our sponsors here in Brevard County are so important. I'd like to thank our many area sponsors, businesses, and medical providers who support the mission of helping seniors that help us carry the cost of our media efforts. If you'd like to join us either as a business partner or simply donate as an individual, we would welcome your call at 321-473-7770. You are always welcome to visit our website at www.helpingseniorsofbrevard.org. Thanks so much for your help. It does make a difference.